Yes guys, welcome back to another episode of the Premier League Appetiser Show. I'm Coach Indy. You're watching the Asian One-to-One Football Coaching channel. Now if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that right now. Only takes one click, 1 second, job done. You will miss none of our content because you've clicked the notification bell, and every time there is a video uploaded to the channel, bang, you'll have it, job done, you won't miss any content. Okay, on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing game week 2 from the Premier League, which was a record in terms of goals scored, an absolute goal fest from pretty much everyone this weekend. 44 goals scored, thanks to Jesus scoring in the, I think it was injury time for Manchester City, broke the record, 44 goals scored. So we're digesting all those games and maybe some plays as well. Then we'll look ahead to game week 3, some big games, notably Liverpool versus Arsenal, which we'll dive into later on. Then we'll look into some of the deals that have happened transfer-wise over the last week or so. There's been loads that have happened, some big transfers for some big clubs as well. Look at some rumours as well, things that have been materialising for a little while. Just a little reminder for you guys, the transfer window shuts on the 5th of October for foreign trades to happen. So things will materialise over the next week or so, and loads of deals will materialise. Whether they're just rumours now, there might be something to it, a bit more substance to it as sort of the days go by. We'll quickly just touch on some League Cup games and some Europa League qualifying games that might have some impact on the Premier League. So we'll just touch on that and some of the results on those. Then we'll move on to some other news, which we'll discuss that's happened over the last week or so. And then we'll finally finish off with Indy versus the rest of the world, which I was up against my brother AJ. Without further ado then, we'll just dive into game week 2 results. So the weekend started with Everton versus West Brom. That finished 5-2 to Everton. Now Calvert-Lewin, DCL, scored an absolute hat-trick for Everton. Brilliant for him. He scored 4 goals in 2 games now. Rodriguez seems to be like he was very influential. And then you've got the likes of Decore and Allen sort of bedding in, if you like, and used to the team, used to the system. Then you've got the likes of Richarlison, who's always a threat on that left-hand side. And other threats as well, but it'll be from fullbacks or set pieces with the centre halves coming up. As for West Brom, 2 goals away from home, so it was definitely a positive for them. Bearing in mind, obviously, they lost their home game to Leicester the week before, 0-3. So they're off the mark in terms of goals scored. Obviously, no points just yet, and that's the most important thing. But you could argue there's some positive signs for them. Obviously, there are some negative signs as well, i.e. they conceded 8 goals in 2 games. But in terms of goal fest, a great start to the weekend, 7 goals, bang. Strong start from Everton. Obviously, West Brom, new to the Prem, need to find their feet a little bit. And moving on to the 3 o'clock game, which was Leeds versus Fulham, so 2 of the promoted clubs against each other. This finished 4-3 to Leeds. Another goal fest, another 7 goals, guys. So we're up to 14 after 2 games, and I'm like, this is frightening stuff, this is. It does sort of die down a little bit as the weekend goes on, but there is 1 or 2 games that still have high numbers of goals. You've got Bamford, who scored for Leeds, Helder Costa, Fulham, they had Mitrovic, who scored for them. 2 teams going for it in the most sort of attacking way, the only way they sort of know, if you like. Good signs for Leeds, that they could be very sort of good value for money, if you like, very entertaining. 2 games, 14 goals, a 4-3 win and a 4-3 loss. So from that point of view, from that standpoint, from a neutral maybe, very excited to watch them. Fulham obviously, not a brilliant start in terms of the results. We've lost 2 out of 2, conceded 7 goals in 2. Again, a bit like West Brom, they have scored goals, so there's a positive there. They're off the mark in that sense, scoring 3 goals. But again, most important thing is to get the points. So yeah, that finished 4-3 to Leeds. Then moving on to the later game, which was Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. Guys, devastated. Man United fan over here, as you all know. 1-3. Didn't deserve anything from the game, and if I'm totally honest, the 1-3 actually flattered us. It could have been 6-7. That's not even an exaggeration, guys. We played that bad. And Palace were good value for their money, so they deserved it. And United look miles off it at the moment. Granted, everyone's at different stages of pre-season, so just giving a bit of an example. Crystal Palace, that was their 7th game, including pre-season, and their first league game and a League Cup game, and then that was their 7th game. Man United, that was only their 2nd game. So everyone's at various stages. On top of that, players would have played some games in pre-season. Some would have played international, some wouldn't. So not very good for Manchester United. Very, very poor, miles off it. They did bounce back in midweek, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Certainly a very good start for Crystal Palace, 2 out of 2. Very, very strong start for them. Zaha scoring a couple of goals for them. Looking good. Then to the late game on the Saturday, which was Arsenal versus West Ham. Finished 2-1 to Arsenal. Goals from Antonio for West Ham. In terms of Arsenal, Lacazette and Nketiah scored the goals. Nothing from Aubameyang in this game, but no doubt he'll go on and score plenty of goals throughout the season. Arsenal just continued. I touched on this and alluded to this in the last episode. They just continued their sort of good form, their good sort of feel factor that's around the club. Winning the FA Cup, then the Charity Shield. They've won the first game 3-0 in the league, and they're just sort of the momentum's building. They're gathering a bit of pace there. And that's obviously mainly down to Mikel Arteta and his coaching staff. They've changed, but it seems like they've changed the culture within the club. And so it's still early stages, guys. Granted, I get that, but the signs are very promising. Moving on to the Sunday, first game was Southampton versus Spurs. This game finished Southampton 2, Spurs 5. So another 7 goals, loads. It just seems like there's, like I said, touched on, guys. There's goals galore. From a neutral's point of view, very, very entertaining. During the game itself, Southampton, Danny Ings scored a couple of goals for them. He can sort of continued his form, if you like, from last season, scoring 22 goals, I think it was. And then for Spurs, very, very bizarre, if you like, sort of key moments or key contributions from certain players. So I'll give you the example. Son for Spurs scored 4 goals. First, it's obviously unusual for him as an individual, but also for him as a, normally Spurs, if anyone would be scoring hat-tricks or 4 goals, it would be Harry Kane. So it moves me on to Harry Kane. He actually got 4 assists, all of them for Son's goal as well. So that's what I mean by it being a little bit strange. And the 5th goal, actually, Kane did get on the score sheet. So really, really good sort of performance. Certainly in the second half. I wouldn't necessarily say the first half. But this sort of change of tactics, and they, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of recognised and attacked sort of Southampton's deficiencies within their defensive setup, if you like. In the second half, they really did sort of take advantage of that. So that's a good win for Spurs, especially on the back of their home defeat in the opening game of the season away at home to Everton. Moving on to Newcastle versus Brighton. Now, I thought Newcastle would do quite well in this game. Bearing in mind they won their first game away from home and Brighton lost their first game at home. Didn't turn out that way at all. Finished Newcastle 0, Brighton 3. Neil Maupay scored a brace, and then the young lad Connolly, the Irishman, he scored a goal late on as well. And I think Newcastle had a player sent off in the game as well. No, it wasn't Newcastle, sorry, it was Brighton. Young Bissouma. No intent in the challenge, but it was very, very, very dangerous. He went to sort of do a back heel flick with his studs, if you like, and with his heel, and ended up sort of studding Jamal Lewis right in the face. So, that potentially could have been right in the eye, blinded, lost vision or partial vision, if you like, for Jamal Lewis. Now he did miss the League Cup game in midweek, but I think it seems like he's fine. He should be okay for the weekend. So a good win for Brighton. Moving on to the third game on Sunday was Chelsea versus Liverpool. So the big heavyweight clash of the weekend, if you like. Chelsea obviously won their first game 3-1. Liverpool won their first game 4-3. This game finished Chelsea 0, Liverpool 2. Goals obviously win you games, but the big key moment was Christensen getting sent off for Chelsea, sorry. And that sort of changed the game. It gave Liverpool a bit more confidence and a bit more impetus in the second half to know that they probably weren't going to have much of a threat to deal with sort of defensively, but in an offensive point of view, they could commit more players forward, if you like. And he actually did substitution at half time when they brought on Thiago for, I think Henderson had a slight sort of injury to his quad, but bringing Thiago on sort of set the tone for the second half, because they had even more of the ball and dictated even more of the play and created even more chances. So Mane scored a brace in this game. One was a howler from Kepa, which we won't touch on too much because he's getting hammered from everyone anyway. But the first goal was from a cross. I think it might have been Kate who set it up or something like that, and he headed it in across the goal. So he's off his mark. He's got a brace. Good win for Liverpool. 2 out of 2, top of the league, or near the top of the league, should I say? Good for them. Moving on to the late game on the Sunday, which was Leicester versus Burnley. This is Burnley's first game of the season as well. Leicester, I believe they won their first game. They did. They beat West Brom 3-0 and they've won this game 4-2. So they're 2 out of 2 as well. Vardy didn't score in this game, but you had Harvey Barnes. I'm trying to think who else was involved. The right back, Castagna, I think he scored a goal as well. For Burnley, Chris Wood was involved. He scored, and there might have been another goal from a set piece, or I'm not sure who scored the second goal. But another game that had a goal fest, another 6 goals in this game as well. So promising start from Leicester, and they started off last season very, very bright and attacked the season, if you like. And it seems like they're doing that at the moment as well. Burnley, a little bit off the pace, obviously they're a little bit behind everyone else. But no doubt their form will they'll pick up wins as the weeks go on. Then moving on to the Monday, where the final 2 games, you had Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. This game finished 1-0 to Aston Villa. Goal came from Konsa, from a set piece. Good goal. Ramsdale couldn't save. I think, in my opinion, he looked like he couldn't reach it. Didn't quite have the big enough reach to get there to make the save. And the header was quite well placed anyway. If you remember rightly, this game was known as the ghost goal game from Project Restart. It was the very first game of Project Restart where Oliver Norwood for Sheffield United crossed the ball in. I think Nyland was the goalkeeper for Villa. He dropped the ball pretty much over the line, but goal line technology didn't give it, or didn't hear anything, or didn't get a buzz, or whatever it is they normally get. The referees normally get. Nothing was received from the referee, therefore no goal was given, even though the ball went over the line. So that hence why it's called ghost goal. So if you like, it's not a very good hunting ground for Sheffield United, if you like. I think I heard something the other day that Sheffield United played Aston Villa in the Champ the year they both got promoted the same year, or maybe the year up, I'm not sure, maybe the same year I think it was. And I think Villa were 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go at home to Sheffield United, and they drew the 3-3. So Chris Wilder obviously doesn't necessarily like playing there, hence the last 3 results, you know. And then that moves on to Wolves versus Manchester City. And this game finished Wolves 1, Manchester City 3. This was Man City's first game of the season. Wolves obviously won their first game away to Sheffield last time 2-0. And Man City did look fairly irresistible in this game. The likes of De Bruyne, Jesus, Phil Foden looking really, really sharp. All contributing with goals, assists, key passes, just a team ethic and work ethic within among the team. So yeah, really good stuff for Manchester City. And obviously, if they want to go and win the Premier League and try and regain it off Liverpool, they couldn't afford to drop any points early on, because they almost been playing catch up after Liverpool had won 2 out of 2. So they are the results from the Premier League. Standout fixtures and results for me, I think the Spurs game 5-2 is an emphatic statement, alongside Everton's 5-2 as well. So both the 5-2 games were really, really impressive, but the most one for me was the Palace game against Man United, away from home, 3-1, thoroughly deserved. And we'll move on, and we won't talk about Man United anymore because I don't want to. Anyway, moving on, we'll have a look at game week 3 fixtures then, and the fixtures are as follows. So the weekend kicks off with Brighton versus Man United at the Amex Stadium. That's an early kick-off at 12:30. Then we've got Palace versus Everton. Both teams won 2 out of 2, so at least one team will be dropping points in this game. Be a really good game actually. Then you've got West Brom versus Chelsea. Obviously West Brom conceded bare goals, and Chelsea indifferent, if you like, their start. That's a 5:30 kick-off. Then the 8 o'clock game was Burnley versus Southampton. Moving on to Sunday, you've got Sheffield versus Leeds, so you've got a bit of a Yorkshire derby there, if you like. That's at 12 o'clock. 2 o'clock game is Spurs versus Newcastle. So Spurs will be looking to sort of build on their sort of form they've continued, including their sort of game they played in the Europa League, which we'll touch on a little bit later on. Then we've got Manchester City versus Leicester, so another mouth-watering game. Two of these well, both those clubs, finished were in the top three for a large part of last season, but ended up finishing second and fifth respectively. So that'll be quite a big game. And then you've got West Ham versus Wolves at 7 o'clock on the Saturday. Both teams, well, Wolves obviously won one and lost one. West Ham have lost both their games, so they need to get off the mark. Then we move on to Monday. We've got a 5:45 kickoff, which is Fulham versus Aston Villa. So that game has been moved 15 minutes early. So has the 8 o'clock game, which was at 8:15, which is Liverpool versus Arsenal. So both of them have been moved forward 15 minutes because of the news that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, had given about the pubs and bars, etc., shutting at 10 o'clock. So therefore, they wouldn't be able to show the whole game. If the Liverpool game finished at 8:15, the whole game wouldn't be showed. Or people wouldn't be able to watch the whole game in the pubs. They'd have to leave towards the end of the game. So that's why everything's been moved 15 minutes earlier. So that's sort of the fixtures going ahead. We're going to move on to some transfer news, which, like I touched on earlier on, there's been loads of news and loads of deals that have happened. So we'll just dive straight into it. You've got Bertrand Traoré, who made his debut midweek actually. He signed for Aston Villa for a fee believed around £17 million. He did play for Ajax and then he moved on to Lyon, and now he's obviously at Aston Villa. A left-footed winger, very pacey, likes to cut in, and he used to play for Chelsea as well. Then you've got some big deals that have happened over, like I said, the big ones. So you've got Thiago Alcantara. I've touched on that for the last 3 weeks, where the rumours have been happening, and is it happening, is it not? Liverpool downplaying it, Bayern Munich saying he's leaving, Alcantara saying nothing at all. But the deal's happened. There's believed to be around 20 million plus add-ons. A massive coup for Liverpool. I think he's going to add something different to that team, a different dimension. I think something they actually did need in that midfield as well, because there's one thing they can be labelled, a negative sort of label if you like, for that team, is that they're maybe a bit one-dimensional in the midfield area. So he'll definitely bring something different. Then you've got Gareth Bale, probably the biggest transfer deal that's happened, maybe even of the whole summer, you could argue. He has joined Spurs on loan for the season. I'm not sure about the finances side of it. There was rumours going around it was about 20 million for the year. Whether that's happened or not, I'm not sure. But certainly, if he can get up to speed, he's going to be a massive asset for Spurs. And if he can keep fit, that's the big thing. If he can keep fit, he definitely will be a big threat along with Kane and Son and maybe one other, maybe a Mora, Lamela, whoever it may be, Dele Alli. Spurs also made a permanent signing for Sergio Reguilon. He has joined them from Real Madrid for £27 million. Now, he was on loan at Seville last season, who got to the Europa League final. Knocked out Man United as well, actually, thinking about it. So he wasn't getting a look in. He wasn't going to get a look in at Real Madrid because they've got Marcelo and Mendy over there. So a cute bit of business that Spurs have made there. One other note to just add on that is that there is a buyback fee agreed in the contract, so Real Madrid can buy him back. I think it might be after a year for about £35 million, but don't quote me on that. Next one then, Liverpool have made another signing. They've signed Diego Jota from Wolves for £45 million. Now this one came a bit left field. It was sort of, rumours came out maybe about 2 days before it actually materialised, and obviously, you know, they've got the deal over pretty sharpish, and he's going to add and put some pressure on certainly the likes of Mane and any of the sort of attacking three, if you like. It's going to add a bit more depth there. I'm not sure if this was part of the deal or if it's separate or not, but the lad Ki Jana Hoover, he is a Liverpool centre half. He has joined, he's gone to Wolves, so I'm not sure if that was part of the Jota deal or not, but the fee is around £9 million. So if you like, if you wanted to take off £9 million from Jota deal, it would have been about £36 million. But I think it was two separate transactions. So yeah, he's joined Wolves. Then you've got Alex Runninson, who Arsenal signed as a replacement for Martinez, who's obviously gone to Aston Villa. He's a goalkeeper, signed from Dijon for £1.5 million. So very much going to be a backup to Leno. Another goalkeeper that's signed and deal that's been done is Edouard Mendy. He has finally signed for Chelsea for £22 million. So he'll add pressure to Kepa and Caballero. So they'll obviously be in competition there. Moving on, we've got Nelson Semedo. He's joined Wolves. He's a right back that they've signed from Barcelona for a fee around £29 million. So that'll be if you remember, they've sold Matt Doherty, so they needed a replacement there. They have been playing Adama Traore there, who's done an okay job, but he's far more threatening, sort of higher up the pitch. A couple of other ones that have sort of undisclosed fees, if you like. Dale Stephens, the central midfielder for Brighton, he has joined Burnley. And Diego Llorente, centre half, he was at Real Sociedad last season. He's just signed for Leeds United, again for an undisclosed fee. Moving on to some rumours. So we've spoke about Ben Rama in the past, links with Crystal Palace and Aston Villa. You've got Josh King linked with Spurs. Troy Deeney linked with Spurs and West Brom. There's a few new ones that have sort of materialised over the last week or so. So you had Max Aarons. Now he's not actually in the Premier League, but I want to make a note of this one. But Barcelona want to get him on loan for the season with no obligation to sign him at the end of the season, which from Norwich's point of view, he's one of the best players. Why would you let one of your best players go for just a loan fee? It doesn't make any sense. If there's an obligation to sign at the end of the season, then obviously there's a deal to be done. Dele Alli has been out of favour at Spurs the last sort of week or two. He's been linked to go to PSG. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Dan James, this one's materialised over the last 3-4 days. I don't know how true this one is, but apparently he's agreed personal terms to join Leeds United. He's only been at Man United for a year, so watch your space on that one, I would say. Tom Davies, Everton have been linked to sign him. They need to strengthen that midfield area, especially after they sold Højbjerg. And Tom Davies seems like he's sort of moved down the pecking order after signing Alan and Doucouré. Harry Wilson of Bournemouth, he is very close to signing for Burnley for a fee to be believed around about maybe £15 million. Ryan Brewster of Liverpool, he's been linked to Crystal Palace, and some numbers that have been floating about in the media, 19 million plus 7 million of add-ons. It's been rumoured. And the last one, Wesley Fofana, I think I pronounced that correctly. He's a defender that plays for Saint Etienne in the French league, in Ligue 1. He's a young defender, I think only 19-year-old. West Ham have made a bid for him of £33 million. Now remember, West Ham have been linked with Tarkowski, and obviously if they can't get him, they're obviously moving down their priority list of personnel in that position. So they've made a bid in for £33 million. Whether that materialises or not, I'm not sure. Again, watch your space. Things are going to happen in the next sort of week to 10 days, guys, because the window will be shutting very, very soon. Okay, just going to touch on some League Cup and some Europa League games. So first thing I want to mention is Spurs are due to play Leyton Orient on Tuesday night in the League Cup. The game was postponed because Leyton Orient, a number of their players tested positive for COVID-19. Therefore, they couldn't fulfil the game. So it got postponed. Now, and then Tuesday's games happened, Wednesday's games happened, and so did Thursday. And nothing's been mentioned whether the game's going to be replayed at a later date, or do Spurs or someone get it's going to be Spurs, do they get a bye into the next round? Well, that was up until this morning. And it's been announced that Spurs have got a bye into the next round, so they will now play Chelsea in the next round, so a London derby, if you like. So that'll be a very, very big game going into the fourth round. A couple of teams, or a couple of Premier League clubs that have been knocked out, so that might affect them or might affect your thinking for watching these teams or scouting some certain players. So West Brom were knocked out on penalties to Brentford on Tuesday night, and then Leicester against Arsenal. Inevitably, one team was going to go out there, and Leicester lost at home 0-2 to Arsenal. So we've lost 2 Premier League clubs out of 13, which is quite reasonable. The ties of the fourth round will be played this midweek coming up. So after this set of midweek fixtures, the weekend fixtures, the midweek after is when round 4 will take place. And then Europa League, Spurs have won their next round. They won their game 3-1. Harry Kane, Son and Lamela scoring the goals for them. So they move into the next qualifying stage. So we'll move on to some other news. A lot of it's to do with actually COVID, guys, so not necessarily positive news, but we'll still mention it anyway. So the latest round of COVID tests, if you like, in the Premier League, there was 3 players that tested positive. No names were released at the time. On the back of that, a few days later on now, this could be one of the players. It might be someone different, it might be another player, but Manchester City have come out and said Gundogan has tested positive for COVID-19, so he's now self-isolating. He's got a 10 days self-isolation period. Another thing to do with COVID, so West Ham were due to play their game on the Wednesday, which they did play. They won their game 5-1, the League Cup. They named their team, they did part of the warm-up, and then all of a sudden their team sheet changed just before kick-off. So 2 of their personnel, can't remember the players, I think Issa Diop was one and maybe Cullen was another. Those 2, along with David Moyes, were all tested. Well, their tests came back and they were tested positive for COVID-19. So the doctor come out and told David Moyes, and he obviously passed on the message to the players to say, you guys have tested positive for COVID-19. You need to go and self-isolate. So those 3 had to leave the game, and obviously the 2 players didn't play, and David Moyes just went back home. So then they're now self-isolating as well. So that's sort of your negative news, if you like, out of the way. Positive news: Tyrone Mings has signed a new contract or contract extension until 2024. So Jack Grealish signed a contract last week. Now it's Tyrone Mings. You could argue they're 2 best players signing contracts. So it's maybe a bit of a statement there from Aston Villa and the board to say, you know what, our best players aren't going anywhere, or certainly they're going to tie them down for a bigger contract, which means if they do go, it's going to be big money for them if they do leave. Moving on to RRA, which is referee review area. So one of the laws in the games did change after Project Restart. So the referees were encouraged to go to the RRA area to review any decisions after going to VAR, and then the VAR say, go and check it out. What do you think? Making decisions. So a lot of that has been happening in the first couple of game weeks. There's been maybe 5 or 6 instances where the referee has gone over. Now, whether they've made the right decision or not is not necessarily irrelevant, but it's just promising to see that they sort of more encouraged to go and do that, and it's been fairly quick as well. They haven't hasn't been another 3 minutes or on top of the VAR checking something else as well. So I think overall that's sort of been positive. So kudos to the referees, if you like. A couple of other things as well. So the fans were expected to be into the Premier League as of the week commencing the 1st of October. So the game's closest to the 1st of October, so not this weekend, the weekend after. There was meant to be some fans into the games at the Premier League, but unfortunately, because of what's been happening in the UK, the R rate, if you like, has massively increased. There's been lots more positive tests of COVID-19. So therefore, these events have now been suspended. So there's been a suspension of fans in stadiums, and they will look at that sort of further down the line, maybe it'll be a month, 2 months time or whatever, to see if the R rate does decrease in this country. So that's sort of negative news, if you like. The football clubs do rely on fans coming in because, well, one of because of money and matchday revenue, but also just gives the players that extra, a few percent. It gives them a bit more of adrenaline, if you like, to get through the game, and also it can be a bit intimidating for the opposition fans as well, if you like. So that won't be happening anytime soon, which is really disappointing news. But it's news that's probably not, it was probably on the cards, bearing in mind what's sort of been happening in the last sort of 3-4 weeks in the UK. So as a result of that, there is some potential that the games in October will potentially be shown all live on TV. Now, there's going to be 4 rounds of games. There's only sort of a few rumours that have gone around about this. Whether it happens or not, I think it makes a lot of sense from a fan's point of view. Obviously, they've not been able to go to the game, so they want to go and watch their team. So the first round, so the weekend of the 1st of October, which I've just sort of discussed there, those have been confirmed. All those games will be on TV. But whether the rest of the games in October are aired on TV, I don't know. So after that first round of fixtures in October, there's an international break. So I'd imagine they'll make a decision in there, or maybe they're looking for some sort of directive from the government to see if the COVID cases decrease and the R rate decreases. Therefore, there's a chance of fans sort of being able to go back to the stadiums. So I think it would be a sensible decision if it does continue and the fans aren't allowed in the stadiums, then for the games, and certainly in October, to be televised through all the broadcasters in the UK, Sky, BBC, BT, and obviously Amazon as well. Okay, so that's sort of all your other news. We're now going to move on to Indy versus rest of the world. Okay, so we're just going to move on to that. So you remember rightly from last week, I was up against AJ, who's another one of my brothers. So I'll just run through some of those results, or all those results, and what the scores are, and then the cumulative result as well. So, first game of the weekend was Everton versus West Brom. So that game finished 5-2. Both of us predicted a 3-1 win, so we both pick up 2 points. Next game was Leeds versus Fulham, finished 4-3 to Leeds. Both of us predicted 2-1, so we both move on to 4 points. Next game is Leicester versus Burnley. Now, this game finished 4-2 to Leicester. AJ predicted 4-0, so he's picked up 2 points. I predicted 2-0 to Leicester, so I've also picked up 2 points. So we're both on 6 apiece. Then you got Man United versus Crystal Palace. This game finished Man United 1, Crystal Palace 3. I predicted a Man United 2-1 win, so I picked up 0 points. AJ was actually a bit closer, but still didn't pick up any points. He predicted a 1-1 result. So neither of us actually picked up any points there. So we're both still on 6 points moving into the Sunday games. The early game was Southampton versus Spurs. The game finished Southampton 2, Spurs 5. I predicted Spurs to win 2-1, so I picked up 2 points. And AJ went for a 1-1 draw. So this is where now I've just taken the lead, 10-8. So Indy 10, rest of the world 8. Next game was Arsenal versus West Ham. This game finished 2-1 to Arsenal. I predicted a 3-1 win, picked up 2. AJ picked up 2 points as well because he predicted a 2-0 win. So the scores are Indy 10, rest of the world 8. Next game, Villa beat Sheffield United 1-0. And I predicted a 2-1 win for Villa, so I picked up another 2 points. I'm on to 12. And AJ predicted a 1-1 draw, so he picks up 0 points there. So Indy 12, rest of the world 8. Newcastle versus Brighton. This finished Newcastle 0, Brighton 3. I predicted a 2-1 Newcastle win, so no points. And AJ predicted a 1-0 win for Newcastle, so again is 0 points. So still 12-8. Moving on to Chelsea versus Liverpool. Game obviously finished 2-0 to Liverpool. We both predicted a 2-2 draw, so we both pick up 0 points. Still remains Indy 12, and rest of the world 8. And then last but not least, Wolves versus Manchester City. Scoreline finished Wolves 1, Manchester City 3. AJ predicted a 2-2 draw, so he picks up 0 for the rest of the world. And Indy predicted a 1-2 victory for Manchester City, so I pick up another 2 points there. So the scores for Indy versus the rest of the world and Game Week 2 finished Indy 14, rest of the world 8. So just a reminder and a recap of what how the points scoring system works. It's not done on a sort of one-to-one head-to-head, if you like, on a week-to-week basis. So for example, on this week here where I've scored 14 and AJ's, well, for the rest of the world scored 8, that doesn't mean I get a point at the end. It's 1-0 to me. It's going to be accumulative. So just going to rewind back to Game Week 1 where the score lines were Indy 8 and the rest of the world 11, so a 3-point advantage. If you add these scores from Game Week 2 where Indy picked up 14, so he moves on to 22, and the rest of the world picked up 8, they move on to 19. So just a reminder, Indy is on 22 points and the rest of the world is on 19, moving on to Game Week 3. Now, Game Week 3, I had another member of my family, this time one of my cousins, Jimmy. Big up Jimmy. He is fully involved in the rest of the world, Indy versus rest of the world. So we run through our predictions quickly here. So, first game of the weekend, Brighton versus Man United. I've gone for a 2-1 victory for Man United. He's gone for a 3-1 win. Next one, Burnley versus Southampton. I've gone for a Burnley 2-1 win. He's actually gone for a Southampton to win 3-1, so completely opposite results there. So that could be a bit of a game changer, if you like, for next week's results. Palace versus Everton. I've gone for an Everton win 2-1. He's gone for a 2-0 Everton win. Spurs versus Newcastle. I've gone 3-1. In fact, Jimmy's gone 3-1 as well, so we're both going to be the same there. Wolves versus West Ham versus Wolves. I've gone Wolves to win 2-1. He's gone for them to win 3-1. West Brom versus Chelsea. I've gone for 3-1 Chelsea. He's gone 4-0 Chelsea. He's gone out and out, smash there for Chelsea. Sheffield United Leeds. I've gone for a Leeds 2-win. In fact, so has Jimmy. Both gone for 2-1 there. Fulham versus Villa. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Jimmy has gone for a Villa win away from home 1-0. Very interesting. Very brave. I like that. We like that. We like this on this show. Bravery. Manchester City versus Leicester. One of the heavyweight games, if you like, from the weekend or for the weekend. I've gone for a 3-1 Manchester City win, and Jimmy's gone for a 4-2 win. So both gone for a 2-goal margin of victory. And then last but not least, you've got Liverpool versus Arsenal, and both have predicted a 2-1 victory. So there are predictions for game week 3, Indy versus rest of the world. We'll digest these and review these next week. Big up and thank you again to Jimmy for stepping up and taking part for the rest of the world. So that concludes another episode of the Premier League Appetiser show. Again, guys, if you haven't subscribed, just click the button. You will miss zero content. Leave a like, leave a comment, whatever, all that goodness, it all helps. We'll see everyone on the next episode, when we will be having another episode of Indy versus the rest of the world. There'll be a different guest representing the rest of the world as well, and we'll also be discussing the week's events in the Premier League. And we'll see everyone next week.